So it doesn't even need to be said, but yes, Silksong was definitely worth the wait. One of the biggest hurdles for returning Hollow Knight players in Silksong was getting used to the new pogo mechanics. What was once a simple down slash with great range in the first game is now this. The ultimate rage bait with love from Team Cherry. Well, you could just switch to the Wanderer or the Reaper crest, but that would be boring. So after my first playthrough of the game, I decided, if the new pogo attacks in this game are one of the trickiest aspects compared to the last one, it would be a fun challenge to try and beat the game with only pogoing. So first, the rules. 1. I am only allowed to directly attack enemies with the down air attack of whatever crest I'm using. 2. The punishment for breaking this rule is a forced save and quit, resetting any progress in the area or boss fight. 3. Reaper and Wanderer crests are banned. Their pogo attacks are a lot easier to use than the others with no downsides to them, which would make the challenge a lot less interesting. 4. Attacking environmental objects, using the harpoon to damage enemies during platforming sections, and using normal attacks when walking through an already explored area are all fine. 5. And finally, red tools that directly damage enemies are banned. Self-buffing tools, such as the Flea Brew for example, can be used. The Delver's Drill can also be used, because it's also a pogo attack. Duh. With everything said and done, let's get started. There's nothing too notable about the beginning of the game. The enemies here on Moss Mother can all be hit pretty easily with the pogos from the Hunter crest. Really, most areas aren't made much harder in this challenge because, yes, fighting everything with only pogos would be very annoying, but I can almost always just walk past all the enemies. Surely I would never die to the first boss of the game, right? Well, sure, I won't die, but that doesn't mean I won't lose, as I realized something very important during the fight against Moss Mother. I think, oh. I'm not tripping, right? I definitely just smacked that enemy. All right, well, there we go. That's the first thing. You would be surprised by how easy it can be to accidentally miss input and smack an enemy with a normal attack in the heat of the moment. And fights in this challenge take a lot longer since there are fewer safe opportunities to hit most bosses with pogos compared to being able to hit them with normal attacks. The added length to these fights just means more opportunities to accidentally hit a boss normally and lose progress on the fight. Thankfully, Moss Mother's not too threatening of a fight. I can take my time, heal when I need, and win. Reset just then. I think it was actually a rock that fell on that guy that killed him, not me slashing him. There isn't really anything special going through the early areas. All the enemies that are required to fight aren't too hard to beat even with just pogoing, and I can just ignore most of the other enemies. It's not too long before I meet up with my goat, Chakra. And it's smooth sailing to the Silk Spear. Mostly smooth sailing. The next boss is the Bell Beast, which also goes smoothly. She has a lot of ending lag on this jump attack, and as long as I don't dive in the wrong direction, I can get multiple hits on her when she does this dash attack. Worth going for it. Dang it, I got very unlucky with my position there. Nice! Okay, first try though. Huge shit, boys, huge shit. With the Bell Beast defeated, my next objective is to get the Swift Step upgrade, which is in the Deep Docks. This area has the first example of the true nightmare of this challenge, pogo immune enemies. They aren't too common, but Silksong does have a list of enemies with some sort of protection that makes them immune to down air attacks. Thankfully, they're almost never required to defeat for actually progressing the game, so we can just ignore them for now. After a relatively easy enemy gauntlet, the single best feeling move and upgrade in the game is acquired, Swift Step. Seriously, man, the dash in this game just feels so great to use. Getting this thing as early as possible is like required every time I play this game. I wanted to get the Flint Slate as early as possible. It's one of the only red tools that I'd be able to use under the rules of this challenge. Unfortunately, it's locked behind an enemy gauntlet containing enemies immune to pogos. With no way to damage them, both the Forge Daughter NPC and the Flint Slate tool aren't accessible. For now. Two things become clear in the first Lace fight. 1. No! Oh, that was just my muscle memory. Holy hell, man. I really gotta lock in with these misinputs. I lose a lot of time and a lot of attempts accidentally hitting enemies without the pogo. And 2, the air dash we just gained makes it a lot easier to be aggressive, stick to enemies, and chain multiple pogos together. In the air at some point against any of the enemies even one time in this challenge. mean, especially once I get like some of the other movement. All in all, not a bad fight at all. Next is the Far Fields, which hold a very useful movement tool for this challenge, the Drifter's Cloak. The air stalling it allows will be very useful for getting off hits against fast-moving enemies. All we need to get it is a little bit of awkward spine farming, but thankfully these Hoker enemies are possible to hit easily with a pogo. We're immediately put to the test after getting the Drifter's Cloak with the 4th chorus fight, by far the hardest fight in this challenge so far. Normally, the 4th chorus is a relatively simple boss with only a few attacks, but the only hittable part of the boss is its head, which is a little out of reach. Each time it attacks, however, its head lowers for just a moment. So, with the right timing, it's actually pretty easy to deal a lot of damage in this fight. I think that that high score for the number of pogos I'll get without ever touching the ground might be this fight is where it's achieved, honestly. Still, this boss has a lot of health, which means a lot of time to mess up. No! Oh my god, that was probably so close. Plus, being above the boss isn't exactly safe. Being just at the top of the screen means I can't see where these rocks are falling from, and it's pretty much impossible to avoid the damage while I'm up there. I eventually learned the right times to go for damage and when to dodge, and reach the second phase of the fight. Oh my god, that must be it. With the last little bit of good dodging, I can ride these updrafts, smack these 2 rocks, and end the fight early with what is basically the ultimate down air attack. With the 4th chorus defeated, the path to the second half of Act 1 is now open. I use the Drifter's Cloak to progress to Greymoor, and from there, head toward Bellheart. I do stop on the way to grab the Reaper's Crest, but as I mentioned earlier, I won't actually be using it for the challenge. The only real obstacle to entering Bellheart is Moorwing. By now I'm pretty used to this fight, and it actually isn't made much harder in this challenge. Moorwing has a lot of attacks that open her up to being hit by a pogo, and it's usually pretty safe being above the boss. Plus, the nerf to this boss made it even easier, so this boss went down smoothly. The final mark on our list of Act 1 movement abilities is the Cling Grip, which now that we've entered Bellheart is right around the corner. Shellwood has a particularly tricky enemy gauntlet that is required, and it did give me a good deal of trouble. This enemy specifically is too high up to hit normally and needs to be lured down with the taunt move. Alright, one more. Third tries the charm, and I'm just barely able to make it out alive here. The boss guarding the wall climb upgrade is Sister Splinter, another of the early game bosses that has been made easier with a nerf since the game's release. Unfortunately, that nerf is not going to be enough to save me this time, as this boss is a nightmare for this challenge. Like the 4th chorus, Sister Splinter hangs out at the top of the screen, making her hard to reach. She also moves side to side very erratically, so it's possible to get hit without any hope of being able to get out of the way. And believe it or not, neither of those are actually the worst part of this fight. The walls and ceiling are all covered in thorns, so more often than not, I just pogo myself right into the ceiling and take more damage. So yeah, this fight is almost impossible for this challenge, especially with the health and gear that I have now. Aww. Thankfully, I won't have to spend hundreds of attempts on a perfect fight because Sister Splinter is actually an optional fight. You've probably seen this skip by now, but if you didn't know, if you lure this enemy here using the taunt, you can position it in a way to pogo off of it and reach this section of the room early. This room that you pass through to get to Sister Splinter is actually just the bottom section of the room that contains the Cling Grip. So doing this skip allows you to do this section early and get the wall jump without having to fight Sister Splinter. With all the movement upgrades acquired, the last key to clearing Act 1 is the Ocarina of the Needling, which is obtained after defeating Widow and freeing Bellheart. Widow really does a great job of showcasing how the movement abilities in the game not only make dodging easier for this challenge, but also the offense. Using the cloak to stay in the air and aim a precise attack, or using the dodge to keep up with Widow as she moves and string along attacks together are all vital skills to practice in this fight. Even so, having to balance getting in attacks when I can and dodging all of the attacks the boss throws out isn't easy. No! Oh my god. That should heal there. No! Wait, that's the opportunity to heal right there. That sucks. Alright, lock the fuck in, boys. That's not locked in. No! Oh my gosh. Alright, heal here. Good heal. Nice again, brother. Oh my goodness. I'm smoking her this time. Oh my god! Are you seeing this gameplay, chat? Are you seeing this gameplay? Oh, Widow, you did not stand a chance, sister. You are dead, bro. That was a good fight. That was a fun way to make that fight, which at this point is like very easy, like a little more difficult and a little more enjoyable and challenging. That was a cool twist. Widow definitely takes the crown from fourth chorus for the toughest boss in this challenge so far. But I've got to say how playing the game with this restriction has made the game feel so fresh. A lot of bosses that feel a little too easy to fight normally have gotten a lot tougher. Much more challenging, but still feeling like a fair fight. We'll see how long it takes for this fair extra challenge to turn into pure frustration. With Bellheart freed, I can collect my free needle upgrade for some extra damage before I move on. And before I move on with the rest of this video, let me remind you to pogo that like button if you're enjoying the video, and if you want to see the rest of the Silksong Pogo Only challenge, to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for hearing me out. Now, back to the challenge. With the movement to explore most of Act 1, it's time for some backtracking to grab a few things I've missed. There are also plenty of wishes to do in Bone Bottom and Bellheart. I do grab the Wanderer's Crest from the grave behind Bone Bottom, but the crest itself won't be used in this challenge. Now, you might be asking, why do I even bother grabbing these crests if I can't even use them? Well, don't worry, there is a reason behind it. If you return to Moss Home with the needle in, you can open up this Weaver door, unlocking the Weave Nest Atla. There's an NPC here named Eva who can provide Hornet with several upgrades throughout the game, including upgrades to the Hunter's Crest. Before Eva will give you these upgrades, however, you need to unlock a certain number of tool notches throughout the rest of your crests. Using memory lockets and unlocking new crests adds to this total, so it's still worth to grab all the other crests, even if I don't use them. The first upgrade Eva provides is adding a focus mechanic to Hornet's Needle, which will improve my DPS as long as I don't get hit. Speaking of getting new crests, I want to grab the Beast Crest while I explore Hunter's March, but it's blocked by an absolute beast of a boss, the Savage Beastfly. This boss ended up being pretty challenging, with it being pretty tough to get in attacks as the boss flies directly into me. It's really annoying once you start spawning in ads, but thankfully, with some good positioning, you can bait the boss into killing his own minions with his attacks. Yes, boys! Oh my goodness, let's fucking go, dude. 25 minutes of attempts later, and the Beast Crest is acquired. Now, this crest is a bitch to use, meaning it definitely is allowed to use in this challenge, but I don't hate myself enough to try and use it. Normally, it's a crest that is actually great for fighting bosses, but not so much for exploration. But it has by far the hardest pogo to use, having a very awkward hitbox on the attack. To me, it's definitely the worst pogo in the game, and as long as I have other options, I'm not touching that shit with a 10-foot pole. One of the most useful, really one of the only useful, red tools in this challenge is within the Wormways. The Plasmium File is the defensive red tool that gives a Lifeblood Heart on use, which is just some nice extra survivability. And at this point, it's really the only red tool I can even use, other than the Flea Brew, which is just kind of useless for this challenge. And that pretty much wraps up everything for Act 1, which leaves us two options on what to do next. Well, I actually end up doing both. First, I could just explore the Blasted Steps, defeat the last judge, and enter the Citadel through the main entrance. The alternate method to reach Act 2 is through the Exhaust Organ, using the Needle In to navigate the mist and defeating Phantom, the hidden boss who guards the Exhaust Organ. I actually decide for option 2, eager to try out fighting Phantom with only pogos. It is, of course, only after I spend an hour getting to her that I realize you can't defeat Phantom with only pogoing. The fight has a scripted ending. When you beat the boss, you are forced into a quick time event and must use the parry silk skill to finish off the boss. Now, is this really against the rules of the challenge? This is basically just a cutscene of defeating the boss, but at the same time, it does use an actual combat ability from the game it being how you unlock said ability. The ultimate deciding factor for me was that Phantom is literally an optional boss. If something like this meant stopping the challenge, I would just chalk it up to a gray area and give it a pass. But since this is just an alternate method to enter Act 2, it wouldn't sit right for me to just go through with it. With that being said, it's back to option 1, the blasted steps. This area isn't really anything special for this challenge. Like usual, most enemies can just be ignored, so it's not too long before I reach the Grand Gate. Fighting the last judge with pogoing is actually not that much different from the normal fight. The boss doesn't really punish you that much for being in the air. In fact, it's more advantageous to be in the air for a lot of the fight. No! Yep, that's definitely the way I would fail first trying this fight. There we go. There we go. You know what? I think I should stand right next to the boss right now. This seems like a really good time to stand right next to the boss. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Okay, that's how it's done. Should we talk about Act 2, boys? Let's fucking go. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. My first big goal for this channel is to make it to 1,000 subs. So if you want to help me make that happen, subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Also, leave a comment down below and tell me, what was the most memorable moment for you in Act 1 of Silksong? Last little bit of self-promo I need to do. If you want to watch me do these runs live, I stream on a bunch of different platforms, including right here on YouTube. You can find all my other social media in my bio, so please check those out as well. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.